There are moments in life when silence is not weakness, it is worship. When the world urges you to explain yourself, defend yourself, announce your pain, and justify your heart, Allah gently reminds you that restraint is a form of strength. Keep your mouth completely shut is not a command to suppress truth, but a divine invitation to trust that not every battle needs your voice, and not every wound needs to be displayed. Silence, when chosen for the sake of Allah, becomes a shield for the soul. It protects the heart from regret, the tongue from sin, and the spirit from unnecessary burden. We live in a time where speaking is glorified, but wisdom is rare, where reacting feels urgent, but patience feels forgotten. Yet Allah knows what our tongues do not, that some victories are won by walking away, that some dignity is preserved by saying nothing, and that some peace only comes when we surrender the need to be heard. This silence is not emptiness. It is full of reliance, full of tawakkul, full of certainty that Allah sees what people never will. Today, this message is not about muting your truth, but about mastering your tongue. It is about learning when silence draws you closer to Allah than words ever could. Because sometimes the most powerful statement of faith is trusting Allah enough to remain quiet, knowing He is already speaking on your behalf. There is a moment in spiritual growth when you realize that silence is not something you fall into. It is something you choose again and again. It is chosen in the seconds when your chest tightens and your mind starts rehearsing what you could say. It is chosen when you feel the urge to defend your intentions, to explain your pain, to correct the story before it grows bigger than you. In that moment, silence feels like standing still in the middle of a storm, trusting that Allah is holding everything together even when you are not moving. This kind of silence is active. It requires awareness, restraint, and faith. It is not the absence of words, it is the presence of trust. Trusting Allah through silence means believing that He is not threatened by misunderstanding, that His wisdom is not delayed by your quietness, that His justice does not require your commentary. When you stay silent for Allah, you are saying without words that you believe He knows what He is doing. You are surrendering the illusion that your speech is what keeps your life from falling apart. You are releasing the need to control outcomes through explanations. This is difficult because the ego wants reassurance, and reassurance often feels like it comes from being heard. But faith teaches you that reassurance comes from being held, not heard. Silence strips you down to your intentions. When you speak, you can decorate your pain with justification. You can frame yourself in the best possible light. But when you stay silent, there is nowhere to hide. You sit with the raw truth of what you feel. You confront your impatience, your fear of being misjudged, your craving for validation. Allah uses silence to purify you from these attachments. He teaches you to rely on Him instead of reactions, to seek His approval instead of applause. There are people who speak constantly and still feel unseen. There are people who explain endlessly and still feel misunderstood. Allah knows this exhaustion. He knows how tiring it is to carry your story around, hoping someone will finally understand it the way you do. Silence is Allah giving you rest from that burden. He is telling you that you do not need to keep reliving your pain for it to be real. You do not need witnesses for your struggle to be valid. Allah saw it the first time it happened. When you trust Allah enough to remain silent, you allow space for divine timing. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop forcing clarity. You accept that some things unfold slowly, and that slowness is not neglect, it is precision. Allah is never late. Silence teaches you to live inside that truth. It teaches you to wait without resentment, to hope without panic, to believe without constant proof. This trust reshapes your relationship with control. You begin to understand that control was never truly yours. Words can influence, but they cannot guarantee outcomes. Silence reminds you of this reality gently but firmly. It humbles you. It teaches you that your responsibility is sincerity, not success. Intention, not outcome. Obedience, not results. Silence also protects your heart from bitterness. When you speak from a place of hurt, even truth can turn sharp. Even sincerity can become heavy. Allah knows that your heart deserves softness, not hardness. By telling you to stay quiet, He preserves that softness. He prevents your pain from turning into cruelty. He guards your heart from becoming something you do not recognize later. Trusting Allah in silence means believing that He hears the prayers you never verbalize, that He understands the tears you swallow, that He knows the conversations you replay in your mind but never speak out loud. Silence does not make you invisible to Allah. It brings you closer. It creates a private language between you and Him, where your heart speaks without sound. There is a loneliness that sometimes comes with silence. You feel disconnected. You feel like you are carrying something heavy alone. But that loneliness is an illusion created by forgetting who is with you. Allah is closer to you than the words you hold back. He is present in the quiet. He fills the space where your voice would have been. And when you realize this, silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling full. This kind of trust changes how you respond to provocation. You no longer feel the need to react immediately. You give yourself time. You ask Allah before you answer. You pause. And in that pause, you often realize that silence is the answer. That not everything requires engagement. That not every comment deserves access to your heart. That not every misunderstanding needs correction. Silence becomes a boundary, a sacred one. It protects your energy. It protects your iman. It protects your peace. Allah teaches you that boundaries do not always need to be spoken. Sometimes they are enforced through restraint, through disengagement, through choosing not to participate in what drains you. Trusting Allah through silence also deepens your humility. You accept that you do not know everything, that you might be wrong, that your perspective is limited. Silence creates room for learning, for reflection, for growth. Words often close doors. Silence leaves them open. Over time, you begin to notice a shift. You feel lighter, less reactive, more anchored. You stop feeling the urgency to explain yourself. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You stop carrying imaginary arguments in your head. Silence clears mental clutter. It brings you back to the present moment where Allah is always waiting. This trust is not built overnight. It is practiced. Every time you choose silence when you could have spoken, you strengthen it. Every time you resist the urge to defend yourself unnecessarily, you deepen it. And every time you walk away from a conversation knowing Allah will handle what you left unsaid, you grow in it. Silence as trust is not passive. It is courageous. It requires you to believe without seeing, to wait without guarantees, to submit without conditions. It asks you to let go of the need to be right in exchange for the peace of being aligned with Allah. And in that alignment, something inside you settles. Something becomes steady. Something learns how to breathe without words. Silence continues to test you in places you did not expect. It shows up when you are certain you deserve an apology, when you believe clarification would finally bring peace, when you feel that one sentence could fix everything. Trusting Allah in these moments feels like stepping back when every instinct tells you to step forward. Your nafs argues that silence will cost you respect, dignity, or justice. But faith gently counters that what is protected by Allah can never be diminished by people. Silence becomes the space where this inner struggle plays out, where belief wrestles with impulse. There is a vulnerability in silence that few talk about. When you speak, you feel armored. Words give the illusion of strength. Silence exposes you. It leaves you open to interpretation, speculation, and judgment. Trusting Allah means accepting this vulnerability without trying to cover it up. It means believing that being exposed to people is less dangerous than being distant from Allah. That being misunderstood by creation is lighter than being misaligned with the Creator. Silence teaches you to detach your worth from reaction. When no one responds to your quiet, when no validation comes, when no reassurance follows, you learn where your self-esteem truly lives. You discover whether your confidence was built on Allah's nearness or on people's acknowledgement. This discovery can be uncomfortable. It can feel like standing in an empty room, realizing how loud external affirmation used to be. But Allah uses this discomfort to rebuild you on something unshakable. Trust grows in the unseen. Silence is full of unseen outcomes. You do not know how things will resolve. You do not know who will believe you. You do not know when clarity will come. And yet, you choose to remain quiet. This choice is a form of worship. It is an unspoken dua that says, I believe you are working even when I cannot see it. I believe restraint today will protect me tomorrow. I believe obedience is safer than expression. There are moments when silence feels unfair, when others speak freely, misrepresent you, or narrate a story you are part of without your voice included. Trusting Allah then feels like swallowing fire. Your heart races with thoughts of injustice, but silence in these moments trains your soul to separate truth from noise. It reminds you that truth does not need to be loud to be real. That Allah's knowledge is not influenced by public opinion. Over time, silence teaches patience in layers, not the shallow patience of waiting reluctantly, but the deep patience of acceptance. Acceptance that some things will never be explained. Acceptance that some people will never understand you. Acceptance that closure may not come in the form you imagined. This acceptance does not weaken you. It stabilizes you. It frees you from chasing outcomes that were never meant to be yours to control. Trusting Allah through silence also reshapes your relationship with pain. Pain usually demands expression. It wants release. It wants acknowledgement. Silence does not deny pain. It contains it. It holds it carefully without spilling it onto others in ways that might harm you later. Allah honors this containment. He sees the strength it takes to feel deeply and remain composed. He sees the courage in choosing dignity over discharge. Silence also creates room for Allah to teach you directly. Without constant talking, reflecting, and reacting, your heart becomes more receptive. You start noticing patterns. You start recognizing lessons hidden beneath discomfort. You begin to see how certain silences saved you from embarrassment, regret, or sin. What once felt like suppression reveals itself as mercy. Trust matures when you stop equating urgency with importance. Silence slows you down. It interrupts emotional momentum. It forces you to breathe, to wait, to let intensity pass. In that pause, clarity often arrives. Not as a loud revelation, but as a quiet knowing. A sense that you did the right thing by not saying what you could have said. Silence also humbles your expectations of people. You stop expecting them to show up the way you would. You stop assuming fairness. You stop being shocked by disappointment. This realism is not cynicism, it is wisdom. Allah teaches you through silence that placing too much hope in people's reactions will always lead to imbalance. Trust belongs with Him alone. As trust deepens, silence becomes less heavy. It no longer feels like restraint, it feels like alignment. You stop counting how many words you are holding back. You stop measuring what you could have said. You simply exist in obedience. This ease is not indifference, it is contentment, a quiet confidence that Allah is sufficient. Silence also refines intention. You begin asking yourself why you want to speak. Is it to heal or to be right? Is it to clarify or to control? Is it to seek justice or to soothe ego? Silence forces honesty. It does not allow you to hide behind noble-sounding reasons. It brings you face to face with yourself. Trusting Allah means accepting that some victories are internal, that walking away with your character intact is success, that choosing peace over proof is strength, that obedience without recognition is still obedience. Silence becomes the language of this understanding. There will still be moments of doubt, moments when silence feels like loss, moments when you question whether you waited too long, whether you should have spoken sooner. Trust does not erase doubt. It teaches you to move forward despite it, to lean on Allah even when certainty wavers. Silence also prepares you for the moments Allah does ask you to speak, because restrained tongues speak with wisdom when the time comes. Words shaped by silence carry weight. They are measured, intentional, free of excess emotion. Allah does not silence you forever. He trains you first. In trusting Allah through silence, you learn that not every season requires your voice. Some seasons require your presence, your patience, your surrender. And in those seasons, silence is not absence. It is devotion. Silence is a teacher that continues to guide you through every season of life. It challenges you in ways that words never could. It asks you to reconsider your impulses, to examine your motives, and to measure your strength. When Allah commands you to keep your mouth completely shut, He is inviting you into this profound classroom of the heart. Every time you restrain your tongue, you practice faith, patience, and humility simultaneously. You learn that power does not always come from speaking, and influence does not always come from being heard. Sometimes the greatest impact is made in the quietest moments. Choosing silence is not easy. Your instincts, shaped by years of habit and societal pressures, urge you to explain, to defend, and to assert. Your heart screams for relief through expression. Your mind crafts arguments, rehearses dialogues, and imagines the satisfaction of being understood. But Allah asks you to pause, to stop, to trust. He asks you to place the weight of your affairs in His hands rather than trying to carry it alone. Silence becomes a test of your conviction. Do you believe that Allah is enough, that His justice is sufficient, that His wisdom surpasses your need for immediate resolution? Through silence, you cultivate restraint. The moments when you bite back your words, when you suppress reactive speech, or when you allow misunderstanding to exist without correction, are the moments that strengthen your character. Each of these moments builds a foundation of integrity that cannot be shaken by gossip, misinterpretation, or conflict. Your obedience in silence becomes a shield, protecting your heart from regret, your reputation from unnecessary harm, and your spiritual state from the toxicity of unchecked emotions. Trusting Allah through silence also teaches you the value of intention. When you speak impulsively, even with good motives, your words can carry unintended consequences. They can escalate conflict, mislead others, or leave your own heart unsettled. Silence, chosen intentionally, ensures that your actions align with wisdom and righteousness. It reminds you that your ultimate purpose is not to win every argument or to be heard by every person, but to maintain purity of heart and consistency in faith. In this way, silence becomes a deliberate act of worship. There is a profound peace that comes with learning to remain silent. It is not the emptiness of avoidance nor the weakness of passivity. It is the steady calm of a soul that trusts Allah completely. When you stop trying to control outcomes with your words, you open space for divine intervention. Allah works in ways unseen, arranging events, guiding hearts, and orchestrating circumstances that you could never manage with your tongue alone. Silence allows you to witness His power in motion without the distraction of your own commentary. Silence also deepens empathy. When you refrain from speaking, you start to observe more closely, to listen more intently, and to understand more fully. You notice subtleties in behavior, tones, and expressions that would have been drowned out by your own voice. This awareness strengthens relationships, improves judgment, and allows you to respond with wisdom when the right time comes. Silence, therefore, is not only protective for your own soul, but it is constructive for your interaction with the world around you. There is also a spiritual dimension to silence that transforms the heart. The restraint required to obey Allah's command cultivates humility, reminding you that your perspective is limited and your understanding is partial. It nurtures patience, training you to wait for the timing and justice that only Allah can provide. And it reinforces reliance, teaching you that the Creator is sufficient for every challenge, every injustice, and every misunderstanding. In essence, silence becomes a school for the soul, a practice ground for trust and surrender. Trust in Allah through silence does not mean you never speak. Rather, it teaches discernment, the ability to know when words are necessary and when they are destructive. Words spoken at the right time, with the right intention, and from a heart aligned with Allah's guidance carry immense power. Silence prepares you to use your voice effectively, ensuring that your speech is meaningful, measured, and impactful. It transforms communication from a reactive habit into a thoughtful practice of wisdom. The world often celebrates those who are loud, assertive, and persistent, but Allah honors those who obey, even when it is counterintuitive, even when it is unseen, and even when it is uncomfortable. Keeping your mouth shut becomes an act of defiance against impulsiveness and ego, a declaration that your faith is stronger than your desire to be recognized or understood. It asserts that your dignity is preserved through restraint, that your peace is safeguarded through patience, and that your spiritual growth is prioritized over worldly validation. Silence, when practiced consistently, reshapes your inner life. You begin to notice patterns in your thoughts and emotions that were previously obscured by constant speech. You become more aware of triggers, more attentive to intentions, and more sensitive to subtle guidance from Allah. Your inner dialogue becomes more intentional, more reflective, and more aligned with divine wisdom. The silence imposed by obedience gradually transforms into a chosen stillness that nurtures clarity, insight, and spiritual maturity. Even when silence feels heavy or misunderstood, it is never wasted. Misinterpretation by others, absence of immediate justice, or delayed resolution does not diminish the value of your restraint. Allah sees every act of patience, every moment of self-control, and every choice to obey Him. These moments are recorded, rewarded, and elevated beyond what human perception can measure. Silence becomes a silent testimony of faith, a demonstration that your commitment to Allah surpasses your need for worldly acknowledgement. In trusting Allah through silence, you also learn to manage your emotions. Anger, frustration, disappointment, and hurt often demand expression. But silence teaches you to acknowledge these emotions without letting them dictate your actions. It provides a buffer between impulse and reaction, allowing you to respond with composure, wisdom, and integrity. Over time, this practice transforms emotional reactivity into measured discernment, strengthening both character and faith. There is a transformative power in remaining silent during conflict. When others expect retaliation, clarification, or explanation, your restraint becomes a witness to the strength of your conviction. Silence in these moments disarms hostility, neutralizes tension, and allows Allah's justice to operate without interference. It communicates patience, self-control, and unwavering faith more effectively than any words possibly could. Silence, therefore, is not absence, it is presence, a presence rooted in divine trust. Trusting Allah through silence also cultivates gratitude. By refraining from complaint, argument, or defense, you become more conscious of the countless blessings that remain intact despite misunderstanding or hardship. Silence shifts focus from perceived injustices to the omnipresent mercy of Allah. It trains the heart to recognize sustenance, protect, and guidance that are often overshadowed by the compulsion to react. This shift nurtures contentment and deepens spiritual awareness. The discipline of silence nurtures resilience. Life will challenge your patience, test your understanding, and push your limits. Every time you obey Allah's command to remain silent in the face of provocation, you build fortitude. You train your heart to withstand scrutiny, misjudgment, and adversity without losing equilibrium. This inner resilience becomes a source of strength, enabling you to navigate future challenges with unwavering faith and composure. Silence also enhances your relationship with knowledge. By listening more and speaking less, you absorb understanding, perspective, and wisdom that might otherwise be missed. Observation without interruption fosters learning, reflection, and insight. The quiet mind is more receptive to guidance, more capable of discernment, and more attuned to subtle spiritual cues. In this way, silence is not merely restraint. It is active cultivation of awareness and understanding. Ultimately, trusting Allah through silence is a lifelong practice. It is not perfected in a day, nor is it maintained effortlessly. It requires daily commitment, reflection, and humility. Each moment of restraint, each choice to withhold speech, and each act of patience builds a foundation for enduring faith. Through silence, the soul matures, the heart aligns with divine will, and the believer learns that true power is found not in the volume of words, but in the depth of trust, patience, and obedience to Allah.